Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is to basically dismantle that confusion. We're going to unpack a communication strategy that's anchored by just two very simple but very powerful phrases.
But before we get to the words themselves, we have to talk about the trap.
The trap.
Yeah, the sources describe this hole that men dig for themselves. They call it hedging.
Hedging, okay.
Hedging is like the linguistic equivalent of a shrug. It's when a man says, maybe we could grab dinner if you're free.
Or, I don't know, what do you feel like doing?
I'm cool with whatever.
I think every guy listening has said, I'm cool with whatever, at least 1,000 times. It feels polite.
Yeah.
You know, you're not imposing.
But the Stoic partnership breaks down the psychology here and why that backfires so badly.
How so?
When you say, I'm cool with whatever, you think you're being flexible. But the subtext you're actually broadcasting is, I am afraid of rejection, and I don't have a plan.
Wow. Okay, so you're essentially just dumping the workload onto her.
Precisely. This is a concept the sources call the burden of choice.
The burden of choice.
Yeah. In a world where we are all so decision fatigue, we're making choices all day at work, on our phones, the last thing a woman wants on a date is to manage the logistics for two people.
That is a huge insight.
Yeah.
So when a man is vague, he's not being nice. He's outsourcing the leadership.
He's making her drive the bus.
Yeah.
And the Stoic studio argues this just kills what they call sexual polarity.
Okay, that term gets thrown around a lot. What do they mean by it?
In this context, it's pretty simple. It just means the dynamic between initiative and receptivity.
Okay.
If the man provides the initiative, that masculine force of direction, it allows the woman to relax into being receptive.
He doesn't have to be the project manager for the evening.
Exactly. If she's worrying about the reservation time or where to park, she can't be in her feelings. She's in her head.
And you can't build attraction when someone is stuck in their head.
You just can't.
So this brings us to the first pillar of the solution. The sources identify a phrase that is meant to just cut through all of that hedging.
And it's so simple.
It's just two words, I want.
I want. It sounds almost primitive, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
And I can already hear the objection. I mean, we're taught from kindergarten that saying I want is rude. It feels selfish.
Demanding.
Yeah, demand.
That's all social conditioning.
Yeah.
Let's look at how the sources apply it. They aren't saying you should be a tyrant.
Right.
They're saying you should own your desire. So instead of, do you want to go to Italian, it's, I want to take you to that Italian place on 4th Street.
It's subtle, but the energy is totally different.
It's the difference between asking for permission and offering an experience. When you say, I want, you are taking responsibility for the risk.
We mean?
If the restaurant sucks, it's on you. If she says no, the rejection hits you. You're shielding her from all that.
So, in a weird way, saying I want is actually an act of service.
That is exactly how the Stoic partnership frames it. You are creating a container for the interaction. You're saying, don't worry, I've handled the details. You just need to show up.
That signals safety.
It signals that you are capable.
You know, the Stoic studio brings up a really interesting point about competence here. They say if a man can't even decide on a dinner spot.
Her subconscious starts asking some pretty harsh questions.
Yeah, like what?
Well, the logic goes something like, if he can't handle picking a restaurant, how is he going to handle a real crisis? How is he going to handle a mortgage or a family issue?
So vagueness signals incompetence.
And clarity signals leadership.
Okay, but let's be real. If you've spent the last 20 years being the whatever you want, honey guy, you can't just flip a switch and become Napoleon. It's going to feel fake.
And if it feels fake, it won't work.
Yeah.
100%. That's why the Stoic path suggests a kind of training regimen.
A training regimen.
Yeah. They actually recommend practicing this in low-stakes environments first.
Like with your barista.
Exactly. Don't start with the love of your life. Start with your coffee. Instead of walking up to the counter and saying, can I maybe get a latte?
You look them in the eye and say, I want a latte. I want the check. I want to sit by the window.
It's just retraining your brain.
Yeah.
You're building the neural pathway that connects your desire directly to your voice, and you're bypassing that filter of apology.
So you have to get comfortable with the sound of your own decisiveness.
That's the key. Use the small stuff to build the muscle for the big stuff.
I love that.
Yeah.
But, and here's the big devil's advocate question, if I just walk around barking, I want, I want, I want, at a woman,
Yeah.
I'm not going to sound like a romantic lead. I'm going to sound like a toddler or just a jerk.
You absolutely would. And that's the thing. I want is pure direction. It's an arrow. But an arrow without a target is just dangerous.
Okay.
So that brings us to the second pillar. You have to balance that direction with warmth.
Which leads us to the second magical phrase from the sources, I appreciate.
I appreciate. This is the ground beneath the arrow.
So how do we put them together? Because I appreciate on its own can sound a bit like a performance review, you know? I appreciate your punctuality.
Please don't say that on a date. No, the magic is in the combination. The Stoic Studio gives a great template for this.
Okay.
You use I want to set the direction, and I appreciate to explain why it involves her specifically.
So instead of just, I want to see you again, which is a little transactional.
A little cold, you say, I want to see you again because I appreciate the way your mind works.
Oh, okay. Or, I want to take you to dinner because I appreciate how easy you are to talk to.
See, I feel the difference. It lands completely differently.
Yeah, it does.
It creates something they call positive emotional anchoring. You're linking your desire, the I want, with a validation of her character. You aren't just saying she's hot.
You're saying she's seen.
She's seen. That's it. And that part is so crucial. The sources all emphasize this isn't just about complimenting her looks.
Right, complimenting looks is cheap.
Everyone does that. When you say, I appreciate your energy or appreciate your kindness, you are validating her essence. You're telling her that she is chosen, not just needed.
Now, the Stoic partnership goes pretty deep into the biology of why this specific combination works. They talk about regulating the nervous system. This was the part of the research that really blew my mind.
It's fascinating, isn't it? We think of attraction as this mystical, artsy thing, but so much of it is just biological safety.
Right.
And the source argues that when a man is ambiguous, it creates emotional diffusion in the woman.
Emotional diffusion, what's that?
Think of it like a fog. If she doesn't know what you want or where you stand, her nervous system goes on this low-level alert.
Is he playing games? Is he interested? Is he dangerous?
All of that.
Yeah.
And that anxiety just blocks attraction.
So clarity is actually a way of calming her nervous system down.
100%. When you're clear with I want and you're warm with I appreciate, her nervous system recognizes a contained interaction. The boundaries are clear. The intent is clear.
And that allows her
Cortisol to drop and her dopamine to rise.
It basically tells her lizard brain, you are safe here.
And for the demographic we're talking about, I mean, for adult relationships, safety is the absolute prerequisite for desire. You cannot surrender to someone you don't feel safe with.
So we have the words I want plus I appreciate. But there's a giant flashing warning sign in the Stoic Studio and Georgia Wise advice sources.
Yes.
They warn about what they call the lie detector.
This is so critical. You cannot just memorize these lines and recite them like a robot. If you do that, you will crash and burn.
Because women can just spot a fake.
Because of evolution. Women are historically hardwired to spot incongruity, where the words say one thing but the body says another.
Because that mismatch usually meant danger.
Exactly. So if you're saying, I want to take you to dinner, but you're looking at the floor, your voice is all shaky.
Her gut reaction is just going to be untrustworthy.
Right. You're signaling a mismatch between your intent and your confidence.
The sources call this congruence.
Congruence is when your thoughts, your words, and your body language are all telling the exact same story. When you say, I want, you have to physically inhabit that desire.
So what are the tactical tips for that? How do you practice that?
Well, the physical cues are pretty clear. Open chest, grounded feet, calm eye contact. But the biggest tip from the Stoic path, and this is something most nervous men get wrong, is your speed.
You have to slow down.
Way down. Anxiety rushes. It tries to get the words out before someone can interrupt.
But authority.
Authority takes its time. The source says that slowing your speech rhythm is the single fastest hack to signaling confidence.
It's basically saying, I'm important enough to be heard, so I'm not going to rush.
Exactly. And then there's the flip side of speaking, which is listening. And I don't mean just nodding while you think about your next line.
The Stoic path calls this active presence.
It's about undivided attention. I mean, if you're on your phone or you're scanning the room, your I want means nothing.
You have to show you're with her.
Yes. And saying something like, I really appreciate you sharing that, tell me more, that's a power move because so few people actually listen anymore.
It separates you from all the noise. Okay, so we've established the foundation. We have I want for direction, I appreciate for connection, and the congruence to sell it.
Right.
That gets you the date. Maybe it gets you the second date. But we also have mastering seduction in our source pile.
We do.
And this source seems to be looking a bit further down the road. It's not just about the initial spark. It's about keeping the fire from going out.
This is where we transition from attraction to deepening. Mastering seduction adds 3 more phrases to the toolkit, but they serve a different purpose. They're about maintenance.
Let's run through them. The first one is a heavy hitter. You inspire me.
That is a powerful phrase. It just elevates the relationship. You're hot is about you and your reaction to her.
But you inspire me.
That's about her impact on your life.
It's validating her character again, right?
Yes. Maybe it's her resilience or her creativity, the way she handles her career. Telling a woman she inspires you creates such a deep intellectual and emotional bond. It says, you make me better,
That pairs really well with the second phrase they mention, I trust you.
which mastering seduction calls the bedrock of everything.
Yeah.
This is about affirming her autonomy. It's saying, I respect your judgment.
And the source says you have to demonstrate that too, not just say it, by respecting her boundaries.
Exactly. And then, of course, the third phrase is the classic, you are beautiful.
But the source adds a little nuance here. It's not just about when she's all dressed up for a night out.
No, it's about validating her, let's say, imperfect beauty, her quirks, the way she looks first thing in the morning.
Right.
Mastering seduction emphasizes that real intimacy comes from loving the parts of her that she might even be insecure about.
Now, speaking of intimacy, this source gets a little spicier than the Stoics.
It does.
It explicitly talks about keeping that sexual polarity alive long term.
It does. It suggests that safety and trust are the floor, but you still need a ceiling of excitement. It talks about spontaneity, impromptu dates, surprise gifts,
And it specifically mentions things like buying lingerie.
which connects right back to I want.
Yeah.
It shows you are still actively desiring her.
And it even goes into communicating fantasies.
It does. It encourages discussing desires, and yes, it even explicitly mentions being open to experimentation or elements of BDSM, if that's something that's mutually desired.
That might surprise some listeners, coming from the Stoic intro.
It might, but the underlying principle is actually the same. It's about intentionality. Whether you're talking about picking a restaurant or exploring a kink, the key is clear communication. It's about saying, I trust you enough to share this desire with you.
So it all circles back to, I want. Even in a 10-year marriage, you have to keep saying, I want.
That's the critical takeaway. If you stop saying, I want, the relationship just drifts. It creates that emotional diffusion we talked about.
Stagnation is just a lack of new direction.
And mastering seduction is essentially telling us, don't stop dating your partner. Don't stop leading the interaction.
So when we zoom out and look at this entire stack, from the Stoic philosophy of I want to the relationship maintenance of you inspire me, what is the core lesson here for the listener?
The red thread connecting all of it is intentionality.
Intentionality.
Most people, I think, just sleepwalk through their relationships. They say what's polite, they do what's expected, they hedge their bets. These sources are calling for a kind of radical wake-up. Be intentional about your desire. Be intentional about your gratitude. I appreciate. Be intentional about your presence.
So it's about making a decision to stop drifting.
Yes, attraction creates energy. Ambiguity just dissipates it. A man who knows what he wants, who appreciates what he has, and who communicates that with his whole body, that is a magnetic force.
It doesn't matter if he's 25 or 65.
Not at all. Clarity is magnetic.
So for you, the listener, maybe you're back in the dating pool after a divorce, or maybe you're just trying to wake up a sleepy marriage. Here is the challenge the sources are laying out.
Stop guessing.
Stop hedging. Stop trying to be the nice guy who puts the burden of choice on everyone else because you're scared of getting it wrong.
Start practicing clarity.
Start with the coffee. Start with the small stuff. It feels risky, I know, because when you say I want, you might get a no.
But a clear no is infinitely better than a vague maybe. A clear no frees you. A clear I want builds something real.
And as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've talked about this exclusively in the context of dating and relationships.
Right.
But if clarity is this magnetic to women, where else is it missing in your life?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Where are you telling your boss, your kids, or even yourself maybe, when you really mean I want? Where are you softening your language and accidentally signaling insecurity instead of leadership?
If you change your language, you might just find you change your reality.
And authenticity is never weakness. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.